I genuinely couldn't wrap my head around what was going on in Josh's mind. He signed the divorce papers without so much as a glance. That whole cooling off period, it was as if it never happened. When I finally held the divorce certificate, he seemed perfectly fine. So why was he now asking if I was serious? Josh didn't answer. He just shot back. "Where are you right now?" I was already in my car, packed to the brim with my belongings. "Goodbye, Josh," I said flatly, then hung up. After a moment's thought, I pulled out the divorce papers, snapped a photo, and posted it on Instagram with a caption. "One parting, two open roads. Light-hearted and free. Life's a long journey, cherish yourself." My phone immediately started buzzing with calls from Josh. I ignored them, blocking his number. Then he tried FaceTime, sending frantic messages begging me to pick up. I just shrugged. It was a beautiful day, sunlight streaming, a gentle breeze kissing my face. Maybe Josh didn't realize today was our 10th anniversary. That evening, an unexpected downpour hit New York. I was a junior in college, working a summer job at a boutique. My manager had kept me late, and it was a struggle to finally leave. Stepping out of the mall, I barely took a few steps before the rain drenched me. My spirits plummeted. I sank to my knees under the mall's shallow awning, sobbing. The rain soaked my shoes, my clothes, my hair. Just like my life, always stuck in a muddy puddle, perpetually damp and cold. Suddenly, the rain stopped. I opened my swollen eyes and saw a pair of soaking wet sneakers. Looking up, I saw a slightly chubby guy holding an umbrella. "Hey, you don't have an umbrella? Get up, this spot won't shelter you." To be fair, Josh wasn't conventionally handsome, but when I looked up and saw his outstretched hand, it was like a piece of driftwood in a raging river, a lifeline. He handed me his umbrella and then, without a second thought, sprinted off into the rain. I got the umbrella, but I think I lost my heart. He looked strangely familiar. It didn't take much effort to figure out he worked for a construction company in the building upstairs. That summer, just catching a glimpse of Josh walking past the boutique was enough to make my day. When classes started again, I'd skip my afternoon lectures to go to the mall, just hoping to run into him again. The story you're listening to is called A Summer, a Goodbye, airing on Late Night New York podcast. Josh always thought our meeting was a coincidence. After all, when I finally mustered the courage to burst into the coffee shop, he politely stood up and said, "Hello, Ms. Parker." I wasn't Ms. Parker. I'd just seen him on what looked like a blind date and, in a moment of impulse, rushed in. What did I say back then? Forget. Something about apologizing for mistaking him for someone else. Then we sat down, chatted for a bit, and exchanged WeChat info. Even now, thinking back, I can't help but laugh. But the Anha of 21 had the courage to approach Josh. The Anha of 31 just wanted to leave quietly. Quietly, that was never going to happen. My Instagram exploded. A flood of likes and comments, followed by countless messages. The core message was always the same. Did you really divorce Josh? We'd been together for 10 years, married for 8. Most of our mutual friends on Instagram, at least 70%, were his colleagues, classmates, relatives, and friends. In everyone's eyes, Josh was a good husband. He was lively, funny, smoked a little, drank a little, had a stable job. Not exceptionally brilliant, but certainly promising. Even without kids for all those years, he'd stood by me against pressure from his parents and relatives. So, everyone found it hard to understand why I couldn't just settle down and was instead creating such a fuss. After 3 or 4 whirlwind days, I finally settled into my new, small apartment on the second floor of an old brick building in a leafy part of Brooklyn. There was even a ginkgo tree outside my window. I didn't even need to open it to see a splash of green. Come autumn, with the golden leaves, it would be even more beautiful. During this time, many friends called to ask about the divorce. I simply gave vague answers, not elaborating. What was there to add? In the eyes of outsiders, Josh hadn't cheated, wasn't a playboy, didn't gamble, didn't squander money. We didn't have a mortgage, no car debt, and no children. What was there to be dissatisfied with in life to the point of divorce? But I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Let them think what they wanted. My mom saw the Instagram post and called too. Did you really divorce? She asked. Yes, I did, I replied. She sighed into the phone. I couldn't tell if it was regret or relief. As long as you're happy. Anyway, it's too far for me to help. My dad was more direct. He immediately wired me $5,000 with a note. Just be happy. If you're not, buy something that makes you happy. Well, I wasn't really sad. I even thought Josh might be happy too. But Josh's mother, Linda, certainly wasn't. As soon as I'd settled into my new place, Linda called. I didn't intend to answer at first, but after thinking it over, I did. After all, Josh and I were divorced, going our separate ways. Why should I be secretive? We got married openly and honestly, so the divorce should be handled the same way. Linda's voice was as gentle as ever. And did you really divorce Josh? Wasn't that a redundant question? I calmly replied. Yes, I did. She admonished me. You kids are so impulsive. Such a big decision like divorce, and you don't even discuss it with adults. What do you kids know? Marriage is for life. How can you just decide to divorce like that? If Josh did something wrong, just tell me, I'll teach him a lesson. The sun must have risen in the west. I couldn't help but glance out the window. Auntie, thank you for your concern. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up now. There was a slight pause on the other end. Linda sighed and said, And I truly consider you my own daughter. Think about it, you come from a divorced family, you don't earn much. Now that you've divorced Josh, how do you plan to live? Listen to me, come home. You should see how messy things are at our house now. Then, perhaps realizing her words were a bit harsh, she quickly added, Josh isn't quite himself without a child. You should still try to manage him a little. Like mother, like son, I chuckled. Auntie, you're his mother. You've been managing him for over 30 years, and he's still like this. What makes you think I have the talent or virtue to help you teach your son? Besides, I called you auntie because I was married to Josh. Now that I'm divorced, I have no relationship with him, and even less so with you. I'm being polite and cultured by calling you auntie. Otherwise, don't even bother calling again if you don't want to know what uncultured truly means. Without waiting for her reaction, I hung up and blocked her number. Thinking it over, I even went through my contacts and blocked all of Josh's relatives. Felt incredibly liberating. From the beginning, Linda had never liked me. The reasons weren't surprising. I wasn't from here, my parents were divorced, and I didn't earn much. I once asked Josh whose side he'd take if I had a conflict with his mother. He'd righteously replied, It depends on who's right or wrong. I won't take sides. I'll stand with what's reasonable. But in a family, with all the trivial daily squabbles, how can you clearly distinguish who's reasonable and who's not? That afternoon, Josh called me from an unknown number. I wasn't paying attention and answered. Immediately, I heard his enraged voice on the other end. And what did you say to my mother? She was so provoked by you that she had to be hospitalized in the middle of the night. Even though we're divorced, you didn't have to go that far. Hospitalized. I wasn't surprised. His mother got hospitalized 3 or 5 times every month. I thought she'd gone straight to the crematorium. And why have you changed so much? Do you really have to be like this? Demanding a divorce out of nowhere, provoking my mother out of nowhere. Before, you used to throw tantrums and I just put up with it. Is this what you've become? I rolled my eyes. We're divorced, Josh. You don't get to tell me how I should be anymore. Goodbye. I hung up and blocked that number too. Thinking back, what had I really changed into? Perhaps I went from cheerful banter to rambling nonsense, and finally to complete silence. Or to put it another way, Josh had never truly cared how I was or what I'd become. After a moment of contemplation, I decided to go to a nearby flower shop and buy some beautiful potted plants to decorate my small apartment. I loved flowering plants. Josh used to call them tacky. Our old apartment was always filled with plain potholes, as if my face was perpetually green with envy. Our first big argument was also over plants. I bought a bouquet of hydrangeas and arranged them in a vase. Josh saw them and scrunched up his nose. So tacky and your taste really is terrible, I retorted. Does taste even have levels? If it's beautiful, that's enough, right? He just laughed and shook his head, as if indulging my infinite lack of taste. Then he lectured me endlessly about high-class aesthetics versus vulgar hobbies. He even talked about how traditional aesthetics emphasized the unity of heaven and man. At the time I was stunned, only feeling how profound he was. He could lecture for ages about a single flower or a few leaves. Annoying. Yes, but at the time I found him fascinating. Perhaps when you love someone, you're blind. Love truly is destructive. That night, another call from an unknown number. I figured it was Josh 8 or 9 times out of 10, so I just turned off my phone. The next morning I ordered takeout. To my surprise, I got another call from an unknown number. It was Josh again. He had countless friends, and he managed to dig up a new number to call me so early in the morning. I really had to hand it to him. He asked, "Why did you quit your job? What are you planning to do now? Where are you? Are you safe out there alone?" A string of concerned questions left me momentarily stunned. I hadn't received a call like this in years, and it felt a little unfamiliar. He continued, "And I was wrong. I thought you were just mad, giving me the cold shoulder for a few days, and then you'd be back to normal. I never thought you were truly serious. No matter what, meet me for a bit. Can we just talk properly?" "All right," I conceded. It seemed Josh had finally realized the problem. Meeting him was fine. We could just hash things out once and for all. We met at a coffee shop in the city center, the kind of place he disliked but I loved. Josh always believed coffee was a scam, selling what he called decor. We used to argue about it, but eventually I stopped. I had a mouth and money. I could drink my coffee without him. He walked in, looking a little uncomfortable, and started to sit next to me. I pointed to the seat opposite. He hesitated, then sat down. "And why did you suddenly want a divorce?" This question was truly ridiculous. I actually laughed out loud. "You signed the divorce papers, then you filled out all that paperwork to get the divorce certificate, and you even picked it up. And now you're asking me why I divorced you? Josh, you're a little slow on the uptake, aren't you?" He took a sip of water, forcing a smile. "I thought you were just bluffing." I stirred my coffee, a cold smile on my face. "You thought I was threatening you, and you didn't want to be threatened, right?" Josh was the type who came from a good family. Everything had always gone smoothly for him. He basically thought he was the center of the universe, and the entire solar system revolved around him. His self-confidence was so immense, even a Korean pop idol would bow to it. When I was in love with him, I saw him as a big, confident, slightly goofy, adorable dog. But looking back with a cold heart, I just saw a genuine idiot, listening to no one, living in his own self-made world. The decision to divorce, in truth, was made in an instant. Before that, we'd been in a Cold War. The reason was simple. I casually mentioned wanting to go back to my hometown for Lunar New Year to visit my grandparents' graves and stay with my mother. Josh disagreed, saying my mom was alone and could come to our house for the holidays. My mom had come once, for 3 days, and Linda's face was swollen with displeasure for 5 days. Of course, I didn't want my mother to endure that atmosphere again. Besides, I genuinely wanted to visit my grandparents' graves. Because of the pandemic, it had been 7 years since I'd gone back home. Josh thought I was being dramatic and tried to lecture me about principles. Of course, I understood principles, but feelings aren't principles, especially when Josh said, "The dead are dead, the living must live well. If you're truly sincere, you can visit their graves online. Hire someone to burn offerings. Isn't that the same?" How is that the same? I was so angry I didn't speak to him for days. But he acted like nothing happened, still went to work, still went drinking, making me feel like the unreasonable one. Even Linda chimed in. "All right, enough already. You should also think about our family. He only gets a few days off for the holidays. If he goes back to your hometown with you, then our family won't have a holiday at all, will it?" I retorted immediately. Mom, Lunar New Year is a holiday for the entire East Asian community worldwide. Your family gets to celebrate, but mine doesn't. I'm your daughter-in-law, but Josh is also my mother's son-in-law. Tell me, since we got married, he's only been to my hometown once, in our second year. How many years has it been since then? Is that reasonable? Linda, unable to argue back, immediately went to complain to her son. Josh called me, repeating the same old tune about settling down, not making trouble, trying to get along with his mother, and so on. Finally, he added, "Tell my mom I won't be home for dinner. An old classmate is in town, and I have to entertain him." He went off to drink and sing karaoke, leaving me and his mother staring daggers at each other. That night, I locked myself in my room. His mother stayed outside, talking loudly on the phone to relatives. I couldn't bear it and started biting my nails, constantly reminding myself not to overthink. But I still wondered why I had to live like this. So, I stayed up all night, found a divorce petition template online, and carefully edited it. I had meticulously revised the document, but Josh hadn't even bothered to read it carefully. I waited for him all night, but he didn't come home until midday the next day. I handed him the divorce papers. He just glanced at the title, sneered, shook his head, and looked at me without saying a word, his eyes full of challenge. His hand went straight to the last page, intending to sign. I stopped him. "Aren't you going to read it?" He sneered. "You haven't been born yet if you think you can trick me." "Fine," I said. "Tomorrow morning, take a half day off, and we'll go register it." He nodded indifferently. The next morning he wasn't late. We finished the procedures quickly. Even a few days before picking up the divorce certificate, he was still indifferent. It turned out he thought I was just kidding. But now he was hounding me, probably because he realized things had spiraled out of his control and it made him uncomfortable. Josh sighed. "And there's no such thing as threatening or not threatening between husband and wife." Chuckled. "Josh, aren't you exactly that kind of person? Or rather, aren't you using indifference to threaten me into changing my mind?" Josh's expression changed, as if he was trying to suppress his anger. "Was I not good to you? Where was I indifferent? And if it was just about that, why didn't you just tell me? Did it have to be divorce? Is divorce a game? You're the one who treats divorce like a game. Same old story. You've got the divorce certificate in hand, and now you're coming back to talk about why we divorced. There's nothing left to say." He stared at me. And don't make trouble. That's just how he was. I'd stated it so clearly, and he still thought I was causing trouble. He said, "And we weren't even arguing. It wasn't even a heated fight. I just like to hang out a little, but you have to trust me, I've never done anything wrong to you. I just need to trust you, right?" Cut him off. "Even if you never came home every night, even if you were always at bars with massage therapists, singing and dancing, partying at late-night diners, I'd still trust you weren't cheating. At most, you were just visiting escorts, right? But none of that matters to me anymore. Josh, if you came here just to say these meaningless things, I don't think we need to talk any further." I took a sip of my coffee. Luckily, it was still warm. Josh looked as if he'd been stepped on, his face flushed. "What are you talking about? Every time I go out, I'm with Mark, with David. How could I do those things?" I waved my hand. "It's fine. I don't care anymore. I used to care a lot. I'd call him constantly every night. At first, he'd pick up and give me awkward answers. Then he just stopped answering altogether. I used to go out with him at night too, but I couldn't stand the thick cigarette smoke in the room, couldn't stand the blaring music in the bar, and I certainly couldn't stand having to clink glasses and shout at roadside diners in the middle of the night. See, I tried to save this marriage, this relationship. No one gets married with the intention of getting divorced. I thought that after I said that, with Josh's personality, he would surely fly into a rage, throw off his coat, and storm out. But to my surprise, he sat down, chugged the rest of his iced coffee, wiped his mouth, and said, "All right, let's not talk about that anymore. But my mom didn't do anything wrong to you. What did you say to her yesterday that made her blood pressure spike and had her hospitalized in the middle of the night? Even if we're divorced, you didn't have to treat my mother like that. Today I was truly enjoying myself. Hearing him say that, I burst out laughing. Then you'll have to ask your mother. After all, I only spoke standard English. If she was hospitalized, it must be because she has an underlying issue. Josh frowned. Did that sound familiar? In our 3rd year of marriage I got pregnant, but for some reason before 3 months, the fetal heartbeat stopped, and I had to have a miscarriage. After the surgery I went home to recover. Linda came to take care of me during my confinement. Every day, she'd call relatives over to visit. As soon as I opened my mouth she'd say, "Even a hen knows how to hatch an egg. Why couldn't she hold on to one?" I was so exhausted I couldn't deal with it. I told Josh, "Either I need quiet rest for a few days, or please tell your mother not to say those things." Josh went and told her. She said, "People are concerned about Anha. They're all family. Should I forbid them from coming in?" And she added, "We're just chatting, we're not saying anything too harsh. Anha's too sensitive. If I were to tell you the truth, she lost my precious grandchild. And I haven't even settled scores with her yet she's complaining about me." Then she burst into the bedroom and yelled at me, making me unable to lift my head. I just buried my face in the blanket and cried alone. Josh also couldn't stand the daily tension between me and his mother, so every night he'd find an excuse to go out. During that month of confinement, I lost over 20 pounds. My mind was constantly agitated, and whenever I was stressed, I'd bite my nails. Thankfully, an old colleague saw I wasn't doing well and dragged me to a doctor. The doctor said I had moderate depression. When I told Josh, he even pretended to defend me, criticizing Linda a bit, but it had no effect on her. What did she say then? Depression. That's all just made up by hospitals to scam money. I only said a few things. What's so serious about that? Would you like to delve deeper into Anha's life after the divorce? Or perhaps explore Josh's perspective on these events? Alright, let's pick up where we left off. Continuing Anha's story in an American setting, focusing on the unfolding drama with Josh and the surprising return of her father. Besides, I only spoke English, I continued. If she got sick, it must be her own problem. For several years after that, I lived in a hazy day-to-day existence, just getting by. Thankfully, consistent medication helped me emerge from that fog. If I had to pinpoint a change, it's that I transformed from an ENFP to an INTJ. Josh sighed. Anha, you weren't like this before. Why have you suddenly become a different person? Did something happen to you? If something really did happen, just tell me. We'll figure it out together. Don't try to carry everything on your own. Today, Josh was truly a walking stand-up comedy act. I shook my head. You should watch fewer trashy TV dramas, Josh. Don't tell me you think I've got some terminal illness or a mountain of debt, and I'm quietly leaving you so I don't drag you down. Narcissism was always one of Josh's defining traits, but to this extent, I had to applaud him. He said, "Other than that, I really don't understand why you want to divorce me. I also don't understand why you've already received the divorce papers but still refuse to accept the reality that we're divorced," I replied. He ran his hands through his hair a few times, as if making a firm decision, then stared at me, trying to look infatuated. "Anha, I truly don't want to divorce you. We've always had a good life. Why do we have to break up? If there's anything I haven't done well, just tell me, I'll fix it. I truly will. If you don't like my mother, she absolutely won't interfere in our affairs anymore. How about that?" It was truly bizarre. Even though I was mostly happy today, I still found it hard to understand why, after everything had been said, Josh still hadn't exploded. Instead, he bowed his head, admitting fault and claiming he'd never wanted a divorce. With his personality, he had never been one to humble himself and apologize, not even when we were deeply in love. At most, he'd offer to buy me dinner or bubble tea as a peace offering. Josh's unusual behavior made me unable to sit still any longer. I stood up and picked up my bag. "All right, Josh, stop talking nonsense. We're divorced. Don't bother me again." He stood up, trying to follow, but a waiter blocked him. "Sir, you haven't paid the bill yet." Back home, I took a moment to compose myself, then started focusing on job hunting. My previous job was as an accountant for one of Josh's relatives' companies. It was called accounting, but really, they threw everything at me: logistics, purchasing, you name it, and the pay was abysmal. As soon as I decided to divorce Josh, I immediately quit. Now I had a little savings, plus the $50,000 my dad just wired me. In this secondary city, it wasn't enough to buy a house, but it was enough to live comfortably for a while. It's just that for me, finding a job wasn't easy, so I still needed to prepare thoroughly. I'd considered going back to my hometown, but my parents were divorced, and I didn't get along well with my mom. My dad was rarely in the country. For 13 or 14 of my 31 years, I'd lived in this city. My hometown was ultimately just a concept. Life became comfortable and leisurely. I slept until I woke naturally every day, went to the nearby market to buy groceries, and cooked whatever I liked at home. No one was giving me orders or instructions. This kind of life was truly wonderful. But I had underestimated Josh. He managed to find his way to my rental building. That morning, returning from the market, I saw him loitering in the area from a distance, even pulling out his phone to ask the security guard, probably if they'd seen me. I quickly scurried away. The first thing I did when I got home was order a few security cameras. It wasn't surprising that he found me. Almost all of his relatives lived in this city, plus years of accumulated classmates and friends. It really wasn't hard to find someone if you tried. Not to mention, one of his distant cousins apparently lived nearby. This bothered me a bit. It was truly unexpected. With Josh's personality, how could he stoop so low to look for me again and again? There had to be something going on. I searched through my contacts and found someone suitable to discreetly gather information. "Hey, Ms. Pham, still hiking these days?" Pham Duneen, the administrative manager at Josh's company, was nearly 50, loved hiking and trekking. We'd gone a few times together before. We got along well and shared similar tastes in food. She replied quickly, "Yes, of course. Planning to hike Phoenix Peak this weekend. Want to join? I'm free. Count me in." Initial success achieved. It wasn't convenient to ask directly on WeChat. I talked to her in person later. I never expected Ms. Pham to give me such a big surprise. "Oh, by the way, did you know Josh quit his job?" I sent an emoji. She sent a long voice message, saying Josh had been consistently late for work recently. One time he was so late he missed a bid opening. Last month he even lost bid documents. Though they were found later, it was past the deadline, and clients complained several times. The director held a big meeting to criticize him, and he even argued back, then stormed out of the meeting. Classic Josh. But even if he quit, it shouldn't be to the point where he's clinging to me, right? I hadn't even fully processed it when my dad arrived. Receiving his call startled me. It had been 6 years since I'd seen Van Dien. Picking him up at the airport, I almost didn't recognize him. A dark gray shirt, casually unbuttoned, a rugged and worldly look. Who would believe he was 53? And Van Dien saw me and immediately dropped his suitcase, intending to pick me up. I took a big step back, refusing immediately. He laughed heartily, just like when I was a child, and lightly tapped my nose. "You naughty NN, don't you miss your dad?" Suddenly my eyes stung and tears welled up. When I was in elementary school, my parents divorced. My dad, without a degree, worked manual labor on construction sites. Then, he heard about opportunities in Africa and crossed the ocean. The first few years were stable. He sent money to my grandparents every month, saying he'd set up his own construction team and was earning a good amount. But not long after, he lost contact. When I was in 10th grade, my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother followed soon after. There was no news from my dad. My mom handled both funerals alone, constantly cursing him. He only returned once when I was a senior in college, visited my grandparents' graves, then quickly met me once and left again. Later, when I got married, he couldn't make it back either. The few times he did return, he only stayed for a few days. Besides sporadic calls, no one was sure if he was even alive in Africa. The last time I saw him, he wasn't this dashing. He wore a faded old coat, looking less like a working man and more like a beggar in Africa. I took him to a hotel, booked a room, and then took him out to eat. He was like a country bumpkin in the city for the first time, gasping at everything. Even scanning a QR code to order surprised him. He kept flipping his phone over and over. I cautiously asked him, "How long are you staying this time, Dad?" He ordered grilled dishes and replied, "I have a meeting, so I'll be here at least 3 months." At this, he leaned closer and whispered, "And in business in Africa is going well now. I've landed a few big projects, but I'm getting old, thinking about coming back to the country to retire. Advise me which area nearby has good apartments. I'll buy 2, one for you, one for your mom." Scoff. "How much money do you think you've made to buy houses? Prices here are over 10,000 per square meter. Good places are almost 20,000. A single apartment is several million. Let alone 2. Dad, why don't you go back to our hometown? Prices are cheaper there, and for the same money you get a house several times bigger. Isn't that better?" My dad shook his head vigorously. "What's the point of going back to the hometown? Your grandparents are gone. I only have you left. I'll stay with you forever now." Before I could argue, he continued, "Before I was poor, I had to make money. Now that I have money, of course I have to save it for Mayanan. Anan won't think her dad is old and won't want to live with him, will she?" What could I say? "All right, Dad, as long as you're happy." After eating, he took me back to my rented apartment and then urged me to go out and explore the neighborhood, telling me to wake up early tomorrow to look at houses. Seeing him off, my head was still buzzing. I wondered if he'd been in Africa too long, because my dad talked just like a local, gesturing wildly and speaking loudly. If it had been any later, I feared the neighbors would call the police. My dad's special souvenir from Africa was a small box of diamonds. It seemed he really had made a fortune, and a considerable one at that. I thought I could probably make a beautiful bracelet. As I was browsing online for bracelet styles, the doorbell rang. I stood up and looked through the peephole. It was Josh. How did he find my place? I didn't answer, hoping he'd think I wasn't home and leave. But he started knocking and calling out, "And open the door. I know you're in there." How did he know? I turned around and looked at the ceiling light. Must be because it was on. "I already told you, we don't need to see each other again," I shouted through the door. Hearing me reply seemed to energize Josh. "And open the door. Give me another chance. I'll change, okay?" I had just reunited with my dad and was happy, but Josh was like a piece of garbage, ruining my mood. He was so annoying. "Josh, I've made it very clear. I won't open the door. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." He pounded on the door, still shouting, "And open up. Let's talk properly. Let me in." I thought for a moment, then decided that as long as I didn't open the door, he would eventually cause a scene and then leave. Tomorrow, I'd report him to the building management and make sure he couldn't get in again. I never expected someone as image-conscious as Josh to be so persistent. He stood outside the door, occasionally shouting, occasionally pounding. I don't know which neighbor called the police, but about 15 to 20 minutes later, the police arrived. I opened the door, showed them my ID and the divorce certificate. "Officer, we're divorced. He's harassing me." The police, clearly annoyed, followed procedure, asking Josh for his ID and saying, "You two should really talk this out. If you're divorced, you shouldn't be knocking on people's doors like this. Neighbors reporting you to the police isn't a good look." Josh's face was a mess, but he forced himself to hold back, just nodding frantically, red-faced. Just as everything was handled, my dad returned. "Anan, what's going on?" Before I could answer, Josh yelled, veins popping in his forehead. "Excellent, and I knew why you wanted a divorce. It's because you have another man. You shameless woman." He hadn't even finished his sentence when my dad stepped forward, shielding me, and slapped him across the face. The police were stunned, rushing to intervene. Hey sir, why are you hitting him? Who are you? I quickly hugged my dad, holding him back while explaining to the police. I'm sorry, this is my father. He's just a little agitated. Josh, restrained by the police, was still yelling nonsense. Her dad's in Africa. Where did this dad come from? Humph. Probably a sugar daddy or something. My dad, who had calmed down, heard that and lunged forward again. The police quickly intervened, and the scene became chaotic. Finally, I managed to pull my dad back, pulling out his ID and showing it to the police, explaining, "My father really does work in Africa. He just got back today. My father and I share a household registry. You can check it." I wasn't afraid of Josh's nonsensical words. Now he was truly shaking. "Is that really your dad?" My dad rolled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo on his arm. Believe it or not. Want to try? In the end, Josh had to let the police take him away, his face ashen. I turned to scold my dad. "Dad, why did you hit him? Now we're in the wrong, even though we were in the right." My dad changed the subject. "Pack your bags. I don't think that kid has good intentions. Come with me to the hotel. This place isn't safe." I quickly packed a few things and followed my dad to the hotel, where he booked a new room. My dad was still furious. Getting divorced was the right thing to do. What kind of person opens their mouth and makes up such lies? If this were 20 years ago, you'd see how I'd handle him. I quickly reminded him. "Dad, you have to follow the law. Don't do anything reckless. It's not like before. He and I are divorced now. We have no more ties." Before I finished, my dad's eyes turned red. "Mayanan has suffered so much. It's all your mother's fault, always busy teaching some nonsense, neglecting her daughter, making her suffer her whole life." After saying that, he stepped onto the balcony and called my mom. I couldn't interfere in their affairs. I just hoped that after this, Josh wouldn't bother me again. To my surprise, the next day, after we returned from house hunting, the entire Jing family was waiting outside my building. Seeing us, the elderly couple immediately smiled and stepped forward to greet us. "Is this Mr. N, our in-law?" Oh my, we never properly met before the two of them got married. It was truly a misunderstanding. Today, we've come specifically to apologize. After saying that, Linda pushed Josh forward, signaling him to say something. My dad ignored him, his face flushed, waving his hand for them to move. "No need. They're divorced. You have no ties. Just go." Linda didn't give up. "Mr. N, that's not right. They're still young." They said divorce just like that, but things aren't clear yet. "How can that be?" Then she turned to me. "And why don't we go inside and talk things out clearly?" I shook my head. "No need. I've already made it very clear to Josh before, and there's nothing more to say. Please leave." Linda pushed Mr. Zheng again, but he was a man of few words, just moved aside, trying to force a smile at my dad. Mr. and my father-in-law, after all, is an experienced man. It's not convenient to be so rigid right away. My dad rolled up his sleeve, revealing his tattoo. "Are you leaving or not? If not, I'm calling the police." Well, that did it. We successfully chased the Zheng family away. My dad came inside and started fuming. "When you buy a pig, you check the sty. This family, from the pig to the sty, nothing's right. It's all my fault. If I hadn't gone to Africa back then, I would have certainly helped you pick a good person. And it's also your mom's fault for not paying attention to her daughter, making you suffer your whole life." After saying that, he pulled out his phone to call my mom. She was probably teaching and didn't pick up. I stood beside him, my nose stinging, my eyes wide. Was this what it felt like to be protected by someone? It was wonderful. In the following days, the Zheng family seemed to vanish from the face of the earth. My dad took me all over the city, and we finally chose 2 apartments in a new suburban development. The floors weren't too high, and the community had beautiful landscaping. We were both very satisfied. That afternoon, he received a call and told me, "This afternoon, an old friend from Africa, Mr. Zhang, heard I was back and invited me to dinner. You'll come too, won't you?" Sure, I'm free. Actually, getting to mooch a meal with my dad was quite a novel experience, and I was excited. But that afternoon, when we arrived at the restaurant and entered the private room, my dad and I froze. The entire Jing family was sitting inside. Seeing us, they stood up to greet us. My dad's friend, Mr. Zhang, rubbed his hands together and approached. "Olden, give me some face. This Josh is my wife's distant relative. He came to my house begging for help. I couldn't say no." My dad pointed at him. "Old Zhang, you have no loyalty. You can save face, but what about mine? They're relatives, so didn't you know how they mistreated my daughter? They never asked about her before. And now after the divorce, they're clinging to her. How can people act like this?" Mr. Zhang bowed and chuckled awkwardly. "They're relatives, but quite distant actually. My wife and Linda's mother are cousins. We haven't been in touch for many years, but now there's some connection." After saying that, he took my dad's arm and led him towards the dining table, then turned back to me. "And I'm sorry. I'll punish Bolly later as an apology." At that point, my dad had to give his old friend some face and sat down. I started calculating in my head. What kind of relative was this, anyway? Oh well, if they were that distant but still managed to track down this friend, they were certainly persistent. At the table, I sat next to my dad, and next to me was Mr. Zhang's wife. The Zhang family sat a bit farther away, which made me feel a little more comfortable. Josh took a bottle of wine from the waiter, intending to pour for my dad, but my dad put his hand over his glass, turned his head, and talked to Mr. Zhang, clearly ignoring him. It was Mr. Zhang's wife who stepped in and asked the waiter to pour the wine again. Josh had to shamefully return to his seat, his face as red as a tomato. I felt even more strongly that my dad was right. This family had no good intentions. When all the dishes were served, Josh stood up, raised his glass, and offered a toast to my dad. "Dad, it's been a long time. This time I've done something ridiculous. I apologize to you." My dad continued eating calmly, ignoring him. Mr. Zhang also pretended not to hear. His wife tried to say something to mediate but was glared at by him, so she just bowed her head and picked up food, pretending not to see. Josh's mother also stood up, holding a wine glass. "Mr. N, if my Josh made any mistakes before, you can hit him, you can scold him. He's half your son too, after all. It's not easy for two young people to be together. Why say divorce is divorce? Don't you agree?" At this, my dad finally glanced at her. "Everyone teaches their own children. If you can't teach your son, then take him home and teach him again. Don't beg outsiders for everything. And I think my daughter was right to divorce. If I hadn't been busy in Africa back then, and then caught in the pandemic and couldn't come home, I would have forced him to divorce a long time ago." Linda's face fell. She turned to me. "And you two were husband and wife, so say something." I replied, "I've already said it many times. I told Josh not to contact me anymore, and I told you not to either. Haven't I said that?" My dad smiled contentedly, raised his glass to me, took a sip, then turned back to Mr. Zhang, continuing to tell stories from the construction site, roaring with laughter. Linda, exasperated, pushed Mr. Zhang to stand up. He also raised his glass. "Mr. N, I'm not good with words. So my whole family toasts you." My dad sneered, turned to me and said, "Geez, not good with words, and yet he can still speak like that? I thought not being good with words meant being mute." Despite being treated so coldly, the entire Jing family still forced themselves to endure it, drinking a sip themselves before sitting down. Throughout the meal, I completely ignored them, pretending not to hear or see. My dad looked very satisfied. "That's right, you can't be lenient with people like this. And then before I thought you were soft, but that's good now." Then he got angry again. "It must be the Zheng family that spoiled my daughter. Just wait, I'll get justice for you." I was surprised. "How do you plan to get justice, Dad?" He said, That Josh works for a construction bidding company, right? He's in construction. I'll definitely find my connections. Just wait, I'll ruin his career. No, Dad, I heard he lost his job already. You don't need to do anything. He lost his job. Where do they live? Take me there. I'll let out some of your anger. My dad started coming up with all sorts of schemes, clearly having thought of a new plan. I refused, truly not wanting any more involvement with their family, but my dad wouldn't back down. He insisted on taking me there. After getting directions, he went to Mr. Zhang to ask for information about the Zheng family's address. He started going out early and coming home late every day. I called my mom and she said, "Let your dad be. He hasn't been back in the country for so many years. He's accumulated a lot of frustration. Just let him vent." You're right, Mom. He was just a pitiful child, ignored for so many years, and now suddenly my dad's favorite daughter. I was still not quite used to it. That weekend I went hiking Phoenix Peak with Ms. Pham. The scenery along the way was beautiful, and I heard quite a bit of gossip. Everyone at Josh's company knew about my divorce, and no one found it unusual. In fact, they thought it was miraculous that I had endured for so long. I just smiled. There was nothing else I could do. I couldn't analyze every little emotion for outsiders, just like before, when Josh went out drinking and singing all night and didn't come home. When I couldn't reach him, I started calling every friend who might be with him. I remember someone picking up and unhappily criticizing me. "And you're an independent woman. You don't need to be like a resentful wife, spending all day checking on your husband's whereabouts." It was then that I suddenly realized that, after living with Josh for so long, I no longer had friends, no longer had my own space. My entire life revolved around him. I had become the person I used to hate the most. When I got home, my dad was already there. He was wearing an apron, busy in the kitchen. Seeing me, he popped his head out and said, "Anan, you're home. Perfect, go wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready." During dinner, my dad proudly recounted how he'd been wandering around the Zheng family's neighborhood every day, playing chess with the old men and cards with the old ladies. He'd dug up all their family secrets. Now, he said, even dogs wouldn't touch that family. He reveled in telling me this. Chuckled. "All right, Dad, don't mind that family anymore." After that dinner the other day, if they had any shame left, they wouldn't dare show their faces. My dad nodded and started giving me instructions. "And then, we can finalize the paperwork for that house next Monday. When that happens, go check if anything needs to be renovated or if you need to buy any more furniture. It's your decision. In a few days, I have to go to Madrid for a conference. It'll probably be half a month before I'm back. If anything comes up, just call me." I casually asked, "What conference, Dad?" My dad pulled out his phone and showed me. It was a construction industry conference, themed around sharing overseas project experience. My dad's name was listed in the honorary guest section, quite prominently. I found the channel familiar. Josh used to follow it. Looking at the post time, it was right on the afternoon we got our divorce certificate. I looked up at my dad. "I think I know why Josh keeps clinging to me. It's just that right after we divorced, he turned around and saw you, Dad, becoming so successful and prominent. The domestic construction industry isn't what it used to be. Josh's company is doing worse and worse. He probably saw your name, Dad, and the phrase head of construction project 30 in Africa behind it. So he got greedy and wants to leverage me to rely on you. That's why someone who used to be so arrogant is now hounding me relentlessly. What he wants isn't me, it's you, Dad." There was never any regret or remorse. It was all just naked greed for money. I told my dad my theory. He laughed so hard he almost choked. Doesn't know his place, made my daughter suffer, and now wants me to help him. He must still be dreaming. I replied, "Josh is the type who always thinks everything is a given," then quickly reminded my dad, "Just get ready for the conference, Dad. There's no rush to renovate the house here. Mom will be here for summer break soon and can stay with me. I'll plan things once Mom arrives." My dad agreed, suddenly excited. "How about this? After we finalize the house paperwork, You come to Madrid with me too. You and I have never traveled together before. This time, let's have a trip. This was perfectly to my liking. I immediately pulled out my phone and booked plane tickets. Holding 2 property deeds in my hand after finalizing the transfer at the notary's office, I still couldn't quite believe it. In truth, my dad didn't have much cash. These 2 houses had almost depleted his funds. But he was very happy and even said that after returning from Madrid, he would go back to his hometown with my grandparents and then pick up my mom to live with us. My mom would be free during the upcoming summer break, perfect for staying with me and overseeing the house renovations. To my surprise, as soon as we entered the new apartment complex, we ran into Josh again. This guy was like a persistent ghost. He was holding a huge bouquet of flowers. Seeing me and my dad from a distance, he rushed over. My dad immediately stepped in front of me and roared, "What are you doing here again?" Josh respectfully said, "Dad, I know I made a mistake. I promise to be good to Anha from now on, to take care of her for the rest of my life. Dad, let us remarry." I pushed my dad aside and shook my head. "Josh, actually, you don't want to remarry me, you want to remarry my dad, don't you?" My dad burst out laughing. Josh, hearing this, glanced at my dad awkwardly, then said to me, "No, Anha, believe me. I've been thinking a lot lately. I still truly love you, and I can't bear to lose you. I swear I won't touch a penny or ask for anything from your dad." He rushed to say, "I swear I'm not after your dad's money, nor do I intend to ask him for help. Believe me, let's remarry and live a good life together." I smiled and shook my head. "No, Josh, are you playing games with me? I just asked you to swear. I never said if you swore we'd remarry." "Josh, you just saw my dad's success and wanted to latch on. Stop using those live a good life together lines to hide it. If you really wanted to live a good life, we wouldn't have divorced in the first place. Save your breath. I've said it, we're divorced, there's no going back. If you're still shameless, I don't mind going public with all your friends and relatives. Last time you came to my place, the police were called. I still have the video." Josh's mouth hung open. His face flushed with anger. He couldn't maintain his fake facade anymore, furiously throwing the bouquet on the ground. "You think I wanted to come here? If my mother hadn't knelt and begged me, why would I ever beg you?" I breathed a sigh of relief. This was the real Josh. My dad took a step forward. "Get out!" Josh fled in a panic. My dad turned around and patted my shoulder. "Let's go. We're going to Madrid." "Yes, let's go. My good days have just begun." Returning from Madrid and then going back to my hometown to pick up my mom and bringing her back to the city was all about a month later. My dad had to return to Africa to handle work. My mom and I were busy preparing our new home. Though tiring, every day was filled with joy. I didn't actively seek out news, but information about Josh occasionally trickled in. At the building materials market, I ran into a furniture vendor who was his distant cousin. Seeing me, she was incredibly enthusiastic, telling me, "Josh? He's too used to living comfortably. He doesn't know how to appreciate things. Look at you, you're doing so well now, and he lost his job. He fights with his mom every day and drinks himself into a stupor. If he keeps this up, he'll be ruined sooner or later." I just smiled and didn't say anything. My mom then added, "That's why I say, raising children is very important. From a young age you have to set an example and build the right values. Parents must always care about their children's mental well-being, not just think it's enough if they're happy. You also have to guide them in life and help them grow." I broke into a sweat, quickly pulling my mom, the possessed professor, away. "Our life is good, that's enough. Let's not interfere too much with other people's lives."